Hey guys, welcome back to my second, I'll say the 11th episode of NSCA CSCS, and this is the second chapter, and this is the most important chapter from training point of view because this is going to help you understand everything that you need to know about exercise because it will not just help you stay away from injury but also help you improve performance, right? Which is most important. So here it's about biomechanics, and biomechanics is simply how your body moves, right? Which includes laws of physics and mechanics, right? So this will help you understand how muscles, how bones, how joints work together, right? For anything that you do, example can be running, jumping, or even doing resistance training exercise, right? So this becomes most important because this will not just keep you away from injury, but also help improve performance, which is the most important when it comes to exercise, right? Because we all know that sports is all about performance, and it is just it's important for you to know the best possible way to exercise, or I will say the best possible form to ensure that you always keep improving, right? So here we will be talking about resistance training, right? And we need to understand the biomechanics, and if you know the biomechanics well, you can optimize the performance, and most importantly you can also reduce injury, right? So going forward, this is the most important lecture, or I'll say episode. So stay tuned for more information, right? And hope you will learn. And I will try to make it more easy for you to understand, right? So starting with the first important thing that you need to know is skeletal muscles, right? So for muscles, you have something called as origin and insertion, right? So origin can simply be stated as the start, and insertion can also be called as the end, right? So the major difference between an origin and insertion is what you need to know, right? So if I take example of my bicep as a muscle, right? So if I take bicep as a muscle example, so I have my biceps starting from this attached to this end, right, which can be my origin, and now that and my bicep actually help. I will say it crosses my elbow joint and inserts onto my forearm, which can be my insertion, right? So now this is the origin, which is close to the body, and anything that's close to the head or the body is also called as proximal, right? And anything that is close, I'll say away from the body or away from the head of the bone, that's called distal, right? So proximal is close to the head or to the body, and distal is away from the head or away from the point of reference or the body, right? So now origin will be your proximal attachment, and insertion will be your distal attachment, right? So the main difference between origin and insertion is the muscle actually moves from the insertion, right? So if I want to contract my bicep muscle, the insertion has to come towards the origin, right? So it's like the insertion will always move towards the origin, right? So the movement actually happens at the insertion mat, or I will say very limited movement at the origin. The major movement that happens at any joint will be from the muscle's insertion, right? So if I take example of my chest muscle, the chest muscle has the origin, which is inside, and the insertion is here, right? So now the insertion has to move towards the origin. That's most important when it comes to all the muscles. So muscles can also be categorized as fleshy and fibrous, right? So fleshy is attachment. I will say, are those muscle fibers which attach directly to the muscles, right? This can be your pectorals, right? So what you can see here for the bicep, what you see, this is my muscle, right? And something that I can hold on to, right? It is more fibrous and it's more like a tendon, right? So the bicep muscle will actually attach to the bone through a tendon, and that's why this can be called as a fibrous attachment. Here, what you can see, but some muscles can also attach to your bones through fleshy attachment, right? So the muscles that are, I will say, flat, that spreads across, will have fleshy attachment, and the muscles like bicep, tricep will be having tendon, right? So here This is the major difference that you need to know between a fleshy attachment and a fibrous attachment, right? So now I will say the muscles that are more flat in shape will have fleshy attachments, and the muscles more like I will say rod-like structure will have the uh, fibrous attachment, right? So the role of muscle is also important. You have muscles that are called agonists, right? Agony, the word itself means pain, right? So the muscle that experiences more pain while producing a movement is called agonist, right? Or I will say it's the main mover, primary mover. So if I'm doing a bicep curl, my bicep is experiencing agony, which is under pain if I'm doing it with resistance run or just by like this, right? So now my bicep is experiencing pain, and this is the muscle responsible for producing this movement. So now this can be called as agonist, right? So the muscle that works opposite to this muscle, right? So the muscle that works opposite to this muscle, my bicep, will be my antagonist, right? So if I'm doing chest muscle exercise or press, then my chest is my agonist experiencing the pain, and the muscle that's behind, right, working opposite to my agonist is my antagonist, right? So back will be my antagonist. Same can be with my bicep, right? So bicep is agonist, bicep will be antagonist, right? This is important. So antagonist is also important role of muscle, has very important role to play while you are producing movement or while you are moving, right? So let's take an example of hitting someone uh, as a boxer, right? So if you hit someone, what muscles are you using is your agonist, right? To help you hit someone, but then you also have your antagonist, which have important role to play, which is to stop the movement, right? So now if my agonist keeps firing and if my antagonist don't fire, what will happen? I may experience a lot of joke at my shoulder, impact at my shoulder joint, which may result into a shoulder injury, right? So this antagonist actually helps stabilize the joint, right? Protects you from impact and also stops the movement, right? So stopping is also important. So the braking effect is actually through your antagonist muscle, right? So again, you have another set of muscle, which is your synergist, right? So synergist is a muscle group that help you produce the movement, right? So suppose if I take example of doing a chest press, right? So chest will be my agonist. Opposite to my chest, working my back muscles, or I will say my traps and all, will be antagonist. And then I will have my shoulders and tricep helping me to form this movement, and they are my synergists, right? So these are skeletal muscles. These are important things that you need to know when it comes to training, right? So if I take example of a beginner, right, what he does initially, if you ask him to squat, he will not be able to go too deep, right? And not able to reach that distance may also be because of the overactive antagonists, right? Because they are contracting and not allowing him to sit down, right, to the desired range. So again, once with training, what happens, your antagonist will get conditioned, right, and will allow and will know when to stop and when to fire, right? So this is important from training perspective, because if you ask a new beginner to do a full range of squat, he may have difficulty. So he may not have any mobility problem, he may not be obese, he may know everything, or he may be physically fit, but then the problem here is his antagonist are overactive, firing not when it's required, right? So important when it comes to training point of view. So this was it with this chapter second, episode 1. So I hope you're liking my videos. If you like, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.